turn to him right now.
Oh.
A man I've known for 30 years now.
30 years.
And how about being allowed to drink on podcasts?
I
The
mean,
great Steve Kim.
Dave, this is the funniest thing. I was thinking about this. It is exactly about 30 years. It was the summer of 1995. You're on K-Max. I was Steve from Hollywood, and I became the Cal Ripken of the show because I had a streak throughout the whole summer.
How many days in a row did you call in?
It was probably about a month or so, and that's when Elon Heim, the brother of Joey Heim, said, "Hey, what are you doing with your life?" And I said, "Honestly, not much, but I kind of want to get into this." He goes, "Well, come down." And then I'll never forget, we actually were part of a group, but it was really me and you and some other people. We went to Butch Davis's first game as a Miami Hurricane coach.
I was there.
It was either Labor Day Saturday or the week after. They played UCLA and they lost 31-8. I still remember Jonathan Ogden literally blocking the whole Miami defense. Ray Lewis was the only guy that really showed up to play. And man, we've come a long way, Dave. It's been
Absolutely.
A lot of time.
30 years ago, huh?
30 years.
And you said, how far have we really come? I would say relatives are still disappointed in us on our career path, right?
Oh, man, I hear people thought I'd be a doctor or a lawyer, and I'm doing this. God,
how about that? The worst, I would have to say, I don't know if you would agree or not. I think radio, and you're in media now, you're on Whitlock Show doing a great job every day. I think the biggest group of lowlifes and backstabbers I've ever met is in the radio business.
Yeah, but the management. It's really the management. The
yes.
talent, look, the talent, it's a cutthroat, dog-eat-dog world. Honestly, when I was at 1150, I got let go in 99 because I didn't get along with the guy that was in charge, but I didn't have a role. And, look, there's that old theory about, hey, God has a plan for you or things happen for a reason. When I got let go, I ended up meeting Doug Fisher and Gary Randall. Because that's when Al Gore had just invented the internet, and they had this thing called Max Boxing. And I remember I'd seen them in LA Boxing, and they had a computer that they'd fold out. And I'd be like, what in the hell is that? They said, it's a laptop. And I said, that'll never catch on.
Never.
And so I said, what are you doing there? He goes, we have a thing called a website. And I go, what's a website? Well, it's like a newspaper, but on a computer. And I said to myself, that has no future either. But they hired me, and thankfully I met them because I don't know what I'd be doing at that point.
I remember when I first saw a guy with a cell phone back then.
Yeah.
I said, what the hell is that? He said, you can carry your phone, or I said, that'll never carry. People want to be left alone. They're not going to carry their phones around.
Right, and who's going to really want to have their phone attached to their
modern phone? Look at this. I got an old flip phone.
Wait, you still have a flip?
I kept my flip phone. Look at this.
Oh, my God.
How many people do you still see with this, ladies and gentlemen?
Wow. I should have brought my BlackBerry, but that's the whole thing about the evolution of media. There used to be a point when we were both kind of starting out, unless you were hired by a media conglomerate, whether it was local or national, it was tough. Because I remember you would talk about sending out your tapes and you'd have to go door to door to try to get sponsors. Nowadays, it's much more independent. And I think, overall, there's a net positive to the fact that basically, if you have the passion and the energy and the commitment, you can become a media member without getting classical training.
And you're doing great things on Jason Whitlock's show every day, the 3 knockdown rule with Mario Lopez, and all because you were Steve from Hollywood. You called in around 40 days in a row.
Yeah.
Elon said, what are you doing with your life? You said, nothing. Why don't you come on down here one night?
Yeah, and
now look.
Well, the funniest thing was, and also Coach JB's show, I'm on there Tuesdays and Thursdays. And it was so funny. So I was there for a couple of weeks, wasn't doing much except getting you guys Subway sandwiches around 8:30 or 9 o'clock. And
you screwed that up, too.
Well,
you never got it right.
God, Doug, I know you don't like mustard. I get it. But anyway,
I hate tomatoes.
So I remember one day, this is the funniest story. So Nick Zaccanino, who was like the head
executive producer,
he gathers up in a room, and we're all in a circle. And he goes, hey, guys, I know you guys want to do non-traditional sports talk. You guys have your own style. But look, we got to break up the show. You guys have to do sports updates. You guys have to do it. And you guys said, okay. And Nick looks at me and goes, what about you? Can you do them? I said, so here's the whole thing. Look, I'm like a lot of other people. I think the job is easy. Anyone thinks they can be on air. Anyone thinks they can get behind the mic and be good and till you do it, you don't understand how scary it is. And my first couple of updates, boy, they were bad. Awful. I had a whole new respect for Jeff Biggs.
Oh, he's the best.
After the first one I did, and I said, wow, this is more than just talking into a mic. You got to have delivery, you got to have tempo.
You know what's funny?
You know?
I don't know anybody who went to broadcast school or studied journalism or anything who's in the sports talk radio as a host, maybe engineers, maybe producers and things. Everybody just kind of fell into it by accident. I was a messenger driver and a school teacher back in the day. I'm driving around being a messenger driver, listening to sports talk all day. I said, these guys suck.
I could do this.
I could go on the air tomorrow and be better than these guys. They're mispronouncing names. They're getting facts wrong. And yeah, it's tough once you're there and talking into a mic. But I knew, 30 years later, I knew I could do this when I listened to them.
Yeah, and eventually we did it where I'd have sound bites. We'd have jokes. I remember one time I said, we have Hideo Nomo pitched a complete game, and this is what he had to say. And Joey would do his Japanese impersonation, which sounded more like Chinese. Yeah. But it was a funny thing. Everyone knew it was a gag. So we kind of developed a style. And then eventually, I remember me and Chris Anderson, who's famous for being a long snapper at UCLA. I think he was on one of the Rose Bowl teams with Bob Toledo. He became my partner, and we did the K9 and Ugly Man graveyard shift on a weekend. So that was my first experience. And then we had the Escape from Saigon night, the last night of K-Max.
I still have those tapes.
Yeah, don't ever let them go.
I should bury them.
Keep that in Al Capone's vaults. Do not let anyone ever hear
them. The big mistake they made, they called us into a lunch meeting and said, the station has been sold. You're all out of work. We're switching to rock and roll format starting at midnight tonight. Here's the mistake. We're going to all let you do your final show. So we all went out and got hammered. We were on 8 to midnight.
We were drinking during the show.
Yeah, well, we were drunk when we went on the air from 8 to midnight. Then we were drinking on the show. And a caller called in and said, this sucks. And he's using MFers, Fers, CS. And then he said, Mark, you got to delete that, our board, Mark Smith. And we looked out in the hall and he was passed out drunk. He wasn't even on the board. So then, Steve, after that, it was a free-for-all.
Well, Dave, I have a question.
Nothing but cursing and swearing the rest of the night.
So, Dave, I remember it took about 5-6 months. So starting in 97, I remember you saw me at a fight. And you said, hey, I got something here. We're going to get hired. You want to come on with us? It was at AM 1150. They just got. Did they not know about that show?
They must not have.
Because that should have got you banned.
I'm surprised we ever worked again after that. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, F-bombs, MF bombs, CS bombs.
Yeah, we were using the word that rhymed with bunt.
Yeah, and
let's just put it that way.
Falling down drunk for 4 hours. And by the way, remember, the new owner of the station was sitting back in the control room, and he was sitting there with his arms folded. I've never seen a guy so pissed off, just looking, waiting for midnight to happen.
That was an unbelievable experience because I don't know about you, Dave, but from 1991 to 94, I was one of the most avid listeners of the McDonnell Douglas show.
Yeah.
I look, say what you want about Joe McDonnell, God rest his soul, but he's a guy that I kind of looked up to, and certainly Doug Krikorian, who I know very well. I'm very honored to. But to actually see them in person and to say, wow, I'm at the same place they are. Now, they didn't last as long because they didn't get paid.
Yeah.
They just got the hell out of there.
Well, Doug quit because he wasn't getting paid.
Right, and the drive to Pasadena, he told me, just absolutely killed him. But, I mean, those were great times, and that's how I really started. And it really goes to show you that's 30 years. Where does the time go?
Where does the time go?
Where does the time go?
And we don't look a day older than we did 30 years ago, do we?
I don't know about you. This hair's a little different, a little lighter than it used to be.
That's why I'm going to get on Ozempic pretty soon. After these 30 years of going. Let's talk some college football. You just got back from Miami. You were there for the season opener, Miami against Notre Dame. You're a huge Canes fan. I tell you what, this guy, there's no bigger fan of a team than he's a season ticket holder for Miami Hurricanes, and he lives in California here. So what did you think? 27-24 victory. Good win for Mario Cristobal. He screwed up his timeouts again. He screwed up the clock again, but they still managed to win. That's
they needed that.
Good opening win.
After the way last year ended and the way the defense fell apart, they needed this. And it's funny, Dave. I was thinking about you at certain points. We burn a timeout first quarter. I go, oh boy. Then we burn another timeout. And I'm thinking, Dave Smith must be having a field day. Then we nearly blew the game. I thought we got a little bit too conservative in the fourth quarter. And I'm thinking, boy, Dave Smith's going to have a field day.
Were you reading my tweets during the game?
Well, no, because you couldn't get service, okay? So then, here's the thing that really got me. So the last drive, I don't know if you know this, but the Miami kicker is Carter Davis. He's a transfer from FAU. You know what his percentage was last year on kicks? He was 3 for 11.
Wow.
So I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. We're setting up a long field goal because 47 yards is not a chip shot. So I'm thinking, if we had Borregales, who's an All-American, I get it. We're setting up a 47-yard kick with a kid that went 3 for 11 in his first game, and he nailed it. But it was a great win. They needed this. I like this team, Dave. I'll say this. On both sides of the ball, even though we don't have a Cam Ward, we may not have the number one offense like they did last year. I think overall, it's a better, more well-rounded team.
Well, you get a couple of gimmies coming up and easy games. Then you got Florida, which could be a tough game, and then Florida State, who went 2-10 last year, but they had a big win over Alabama, 31-17. Castellanos looks like a good quarterback. So Florida State coming up back-to-back. That's going to be a tough stretch.
Yeah, and Dave, I told people I thought Castellanos was a very, very odd fit for Bill O'Brien. He's not a traditional drop-back Tom Brady type. Okay, so the thing at Boston College didn't work out, and the way he quit on the team was not a good look, right? But with Gus Malzahn, who, by the way, was his first coach, people forget about this. He was at UCF. He's the perfect fit. He's a fast, twitchy athlete at the mesh point with the RPO. He can take the +1 concepts and really make them work. If you look at Florida State, Dave, and you didn't know who they were and you didn't know who Bama was, when you watched that game, would you have called that an upset?
Absolutely not.
No.
The better team won.
Better team won. And I'm getting the sense, I'm getting Larry Coker vibes from Kalen DeBoer. Kalen DeCoker, the nice guy that replaces the disciplinarian. And you know what happens? Things start to fall apart. But Florida State was very, very impressive. We're going to see if they can sustain this, if it was just first game energy. But Florida State, I believe, has made a statement. Now, Florida, that game is tough, Dave, because I think DJ Lagway has one of the greatest arms that we've seen the last 10 years. He's a special arm talent.
Well, speaking of college football, we've got to talk about Bill Belichick's debut. Now,
God.
When he was hired at North Carolina, this is before I knew about, by the way, Steve, it's not Jordan, it's Jordan.
Jordan. And it's error, Jordan.
Get it right, Jordan.
Oh, my God.
And I said, this is going to be a complete and total failure. It had nothing to do with her. I didn't know about her then, but I said, going from pro football to college football, it's like MMA guys trying to box or vice versa. It's a completely different game with different rules. He's going to be a colossal failure. He's 73 years old. He's not going to fly all over the country and recruit and beg 18-year-old kids to come to school there. I know we've got the portal now, but I don't think he's going to put in the time to do that. And they get blown out. What was it, 48-14? First game, they get blown out by TCU. And how about that little hussy down on the field before the game, standing next to Belichick? What the hell is going on with this?
Look, me and Whitlock have talked about this at length. Remember, what was one of the basic tenets of the Patriot Way?
He put a chain link fence around the practice field and said no wives or girlfriends allowed, and no wives or girlfriends allowed on the team playing.
It's just football, right?
Yes.
Don't be a distraction.
Focus.
Right. He was the biggest distraction. In fact, it was great for us because it gave us a lot of things to talk about, right? So all of a sudden, this becomes a bit of a circus. And at 7-0 after that first drive, which was scripted, everyone's thinking this guy's a football genius. And North Carolina's on their way. 2 hours later, Gio Lopez had still not completed a pass. And look, I like TCU. I actually think Josh Hoover's a very good quarterback. Kavion, what was his name? Barnes, very good running back. TCU is going to be a Big 12 contender. But to get outscored 41-0 for the next 48 minutes, then you score a garbage touchdown, and TCU actually takes a knee at the 7-yard line going in. It's one of the most embarrassing things I've ever seen. And it's funny now because if you listen to some of the UNC podcasts, they're out. I think they had an uneasy feeling, Dave, about the offseason, about what a clown show it became. And here's the interesting thing, Dave. There have been some reports that the reason why UNC did this, and I hate to hear this as a traditionalist, they're trying to flee the ACC.
Well, so's Florida State and Miami, right?
Well, okay.
And Clemson?
Right, but when I think of when you think of the ACC, what's the first school you think of?
Florida State. With me.
Well,
or North Carolina.
I think of Carolina because it's really a basketball.
Oh, if you go for basketball too.
Well, and so it's Duke, right? So when you think of Tobacco Road, it's UNC, right? It's Dean Smith, Michael Jordan, all those, right? They're trying to go to the SEC, and this was kind of like their introduction, like, hey, SEC, we hired Belichick. We're going to put money into this. We're on a primetime game. We belong there. Now, Florida State obviously wants out. I'm hearing about Miami. They're going to the Big Ten. That's a fait accompli, right? But Clemson, I believe, will probably be in the SEC. That's what I'm hearing. But again, I don't know much. But this was supposed to be some sort of audition that, hey, we are a viable football operation. You want this brand. We got the Jumpman logo. And to get blown out, Dave, because I hate this conference realignment, I thought it was hilarious.
Well, now let's talk about that. This is what I hate. We both love the Pac-10, Pac-12, the Southwest Conference.
Can we have a moment of silence for the Pac-10?
Oh, we'll see. Let's take another drink here. Continue to drink with the Southwest Conference. But I love the Southwest Conference, the Big East back in the day, the Pac-12. Now, you know where this is going. It's The Big Ten and the SEC are going to have maybe 24 to 28 teams each. It's going to be a 2-conference NCAA. Now they're talking about a 28-team playoff, 7 automatic bids for the Big Ten, 7 automatic bids for the SEC. What's the point of the regular season? They're going to turn this into the NCAA basketball tournament.
Well, how about this? I never thought in the last 25, 30 years, Dave, where I said, you know what? I want college football to be more like the NFL.
Yeah.
I want teams to play each other multiple times. I want losses not to matter.
Or like college basketball.
Yeah, but at least basketball, they had never switched, though, Dave. Say what you want. Look, I believe the March Madness was perfect at 64. I don't like the play-in games. I think they've confused it, right? But at least there was always a tournament where you knew there's going to be a lot of teams in here, right? Dave, the fact that in the past, and you could say that it's flawed, that a team can lose a game in week 1 and go perfect the rest of the way and still be shut out, I thought that was kind of the beauty of that flawed
Every
system.
week's a playoff game.
It mattered. It mattered.
It's the greatest regular seison in all of sports. They're ruining it.
And
hey, Steve, would you agree? 8 is the perfect number.
8
for the
is the
playoff.
perfect number.
They should never go higher than 8.
And also, Dave, I'll say this. I'll be a little flexible. If you want to go to 16, which almost seems inevitable before they switch it to more, if you would have, like you said, the Pac-12, Southwest Conference. Big East, right? Along with the ACC, and then you have the Big Ten.
SEC.
I would be like, okay, because now we're going to get intersectional matchups.
Mm-hmm.
But there's going to be a point, Dave, there's going to be a team that's going to play someone 3 times in a year. And there's going to be a team late in the season that's going to just rest guys, knowing, well, we can lose. Let's say a team's 10-0, Dave, and they have all the metrics to be top 10, right? Coach can say, you know what, I got 8 banged up guys, they're all resting. We don't even care. Dave, what is the magic of that? What is the magic of it?
Let's talk about Arch Manning. Now,
you mean the third best player in college football?
Paul Feinbaum said he's the greatest college football player in 20 years before the game. Now, I'm not all the way down on Arch, so I'm not gonna say he can't play yet. He was terrible in the first half, but I think a lot of that had to do with Steve Sarkisian putting the training wheels on him. I thought he was much better in the second half. He threw for 150 yards and a touchdown. He had a touchdown pass dropped in the back of the end zone. It should have been another one. I thought he was okay in the second half. I think he's going to be okay. I'm not going to call him a bust.
But Dave, I'm not going to rip you because you never called him the third best player. You never said he's the future #1 pick next year.
Yeah.
There's people that I respect, that I like. I got to give them a gentle rebuke, like Joel Klatt. I'm driving one day. This is like during late June. He says, my top 10 players. I said, okay, so you got Lenora Sellers, Garrett Nussmeier, Jeremiah Love. And I'm thinking, okay, so I'm driving, I'm listening to him. And then he gets to number 3, and I'm thinking, okay, so there's no Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith, who are no worse than the second and third best players. Those guys are top 5 picks whenever they come out, right? When he blurted out, Arch Manning, I almost drove off the road, and for once, it's not because I'm an Asian driver. I said, are you out of your mind? See, because those lists, to me, Dave, are a lot like pound-for-pound lists. Pound-for-pound lists are in theory about who would beat who. But, Dave, when you've done pound-for-pound lists, you've never put in a 2-0 4-round fighter, right? Every fighter you put in there has a pretty good resume.
In Arch's defense, they asked him about this before the season, and he said, come on, I haven't done anything yet. I haven't started a game.
Right.
Let me at least do something.
Look, he
understands
size.
what's going on. You know, 6'4", 225, and he runs a 4.5.
Right.
You can't teach that.
I tell you what was alarming, though. I thought he had bad mechanics, didn't set his feet. He looked like he had the...
Is that the coach?
He
put training wheels on.
Here's the reality, though. Steve Sarkisian would not have put the training wheels on if he thought this young man was really the third best player.
But wasn't he much better in the second half? He made some good throws.
He was markedly better than the worst first half I have ever seen. And I get it. Matt Patricia was doing stuff. But look, there's nothing new invented in football. They've all done it. I know they're switching coverages. I think Texas fans on Saturday night had a whole new appreciation for Quinn Ewers. I get it. Quinn let you down here and there. Quinn Ewers beat Bama on the road, Dave. Some of those throws, let's put it this way. he threw bounce passes that Steph Curry would be proud of. Come on, Dave.
I think it's early to give up on.
All right, let's talk about this in
I
October.
think you'll be okay in October. All right, now UCLA. We're here in Los Angeles. We're at Rokka Grill and Whiskey Bar. Thanks, of course, to MTS Transportation, our great sponsor here, for setting this whole thing up. When Deshaun Foster was first hired, I said, what? He's never been a coordinator. He's a running backs coach. And then he cuts off all access to the media. He doesn't give any information now. Then they get hammered in their first game against Utah. And they're about the worst fit to go to the Big Ten of any team I've ever seen. They're picked to finish 12th this year. I think that's a little high.
A little high. Yeah.
What is the disaster of UCLA football? Do you see the attendance of the game?
Well, let's just put it this way.
It was friends and family.
One of my old lines from boxing. The crowd was so sparse, you could throw hand grenades into the crowd. No one will get hurt.
Remember what Bert Sugar used to say?
What was that?
They should have let everybody in for free and charge them to get out.
Yeah. So I just wonder. So was Deshaun Foster? Was he restricting access or hiding a bad team? That's the new joke.
Point.
And I don't know how many people actually were alive for when this place was a thing. But there was one right next to Montebello High School that a lot of people used to go to lunch to. Deshaun Foster's media access, I'm going to call it Foster's freeze. But here's the issue. You can get away with that if you're Nick Saban with his resume, or even Bill Belichick, right? You can get away with it at a lot of places. But you know this, there's an apathy towards UCLA football. There really is.
And nobody cares about UCLA football in LA.
Well, they care less now.
Why would they cut off media access?
That's a great question.
They need it.
You know, look, most coaches have actually done that, though. But, Dave, I know that even at Miami, I know people that cover the team, you get at least 30 minutes of the practice during fall camp, and then they usher you out, then you come back. Players are made available. So the way Bob Toledo and Terry Donahue probably gave access is a lot different than it is today. I get it. But, Dave, I have said this from the beginning. Nico Imalieva.
That was a good trade Tennessee made, huh?
I think they upgraded in a lot of ways because I'm watching some of the Tennessee highlights. Joey Aguilar is hitting passes, the routine passes. I think UCLA is in a bit of a bind here. Number one, they don't belong in the Big Ten, and unlike USC, they don't care about football. You have to invest into the program. You have to be strong in the NIL collective. And there's already rumblings, and it's social media, Dave, and I don't know what this really means. There's already a thought that Deshaun Foster's on the hot seat. We're 13 games into this, Dave. I don't know where they're going to go, but here's the other thing. If you're not going to be able to pay...
But nobody cares about the program.
Well, Dave, here's the issue, though. If you're going to pay $8 to $10 million for a premier coach, because that's what it takes, can UCLA pony that up? I don't think they can.
State school. They can only pay so much.
You're right.
Okay. Let's get back to Kalen DeBoer. We talked about that earlier. Alabama loses 4 games last year, which is unacceptable.
Coupled to unranked teams.
Vanderbilt, they lost. They lost to Vanderbilt last year.
A bad Oklahoma team.
And a bad Oklahoma team.
And a depleted Michigan team.
And, you know, they're going to be pitchforks and torches running him out of town soon if this continues. They lose 31-17 and they're over to Florida State. Before the game, we talked about what Paul Feinbaum said about Arch Manning. Colin Cowherd said the transition, the handoff from Nick Saban to Kalen DeBoer is the single greatest handoff in the history of college football. I said, wow, really?
He said that after last year's 4-loss team.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say this because I know people, I don't have sources on this, but I know people that are very credible that do. Kalen DeBoer may not be a very good cultural fit.
Well, he's not an SEC guy.
He's not a Southern guy. And he's a little bit more loose. I actually think in the long term, he might have been better at Washington. He had that thing going very good. He went to the national title game, right, Dave? So I kind of look at this, and they're going to win the next few games, but the SEC is a gauntlet. But the overriding theme that I've been told over and over again is that Kalen DeBoer is kind of more or less a lot softer and a bit more of a player's coach. I don't think that's a good combination.
And that's not Nick Saban.
No, it's not Nick Saban. It just may be, like, remember Rich Rod in Michigan?
Yeah.
Rich Rod was a hot candidate. But the Michigan, the whole culture, he wasn't a Bo Schembechler guy. He wasn't a Michigan man. Didn't work. I'm getting the sense it's the same thing.
You know who I think would be a good fit there? And I hate to say this, Steve. It scares the hell out of me. SEC guy, former defensive coordinator at Georgia. Now the head coach of my Oregon Ducks, Dan Lanning.
You know
he was the defensive coordinator for Kirby Smart. He's an SEC guy. I don't want him to leave my Ducks because he's done a great job there. I think he'd be a real good fit at Alabama.
Here's the question. Does Dan Lanning understand that the leeway he gets at Oregon, where you are allowed to lose a game or two, does not exist in
Why do you think he turned down A&M?
Right.
He knows the pressure cooker in the SEC.
And right now, Oregon is the dominant program on the West Coast till Lincoln Riley. Either he's going to sink or swim this year, right? So, God, I
think he'd be a good fit in Alabama.
But Dave, you were old enough to remember when Gene Bartow, who was a pretty good basketball coach, took over for John Wooden, right? But what's that theory? Never be the guy that replaces the guy?
The guy.
You'd be replacing the guy that replaces the guy, right?
Well, if they keep losing 4 and 5 games every year, there's nowhere to go but up. If he's replacing Kalen DeBoer, right? At Alabama?
No, you are right. But Dan Lanning, last year, got a bit of a raw deal with that seeding, okay? They went 13-0 last year. They won the Big Ten. I don't see Oregon dropping off all that much. I really don't. I think they're going to be right in the... Why would you leave? Outside the money.
Well, that's what he said about A&M. He saw what happened to,
Jimbo
Cristobal.
Fisher.
When Cristobal goes to Miami, that's where he's from, a Cuban guy from Miami. Who was the guy before Cristobal left
Willie
to take the phone?
Taggart.
Willie Taggart.
Yeah.
He had a good deal going at Oregon.
Yeah.
Where's he now?
Well, one thing about coaches, they're such climbers. Certain coaches are meant to be at certain places.
How are you going to do better in Oregon? You got Phil Knight's money.
Right.
You've got the best facilities in college football. You get
and you're in the
millions of
Big Ten,
dollars.
and you're situated in the Big Ten.
Why would he leave?
Yeah, if I'm Dan Lanning, I say to myself, look, there's a great story. Joe Paterno was about a night or two from taking the New England Patriots job. He had actually agreed to it. And the night before, he's supposed to go to the press conference to announce that his wife's crying. And she says, why are we leaving? We're college coaches. We're happy here. Tell me how that job's better. And Joe said, you're right. He called Mr. Sullivan and said, I'm out.
And he said, I get to walk to work every day.
Right.
My house is on campus.
Right. I mean, that one thing of things I've learned as you get older in life is that, Dave, money is important. We cannot mitigate the importance of it.
I hope to learn that one day.
Yeah, but what is the value of things you cannot buy that are priceless?
Yeah, exactly.
Money's not everything. Money means a lot. I don't think it means everything.
You know what they say? You got to recruit the wife when you're going after a coach.
Yeah.
His wife's Southern, Dan Lanning. She didn't want to go to A&M. She's happy at Oregon, but who knows? If she wants to go to Alabama, he's going to do it.
Yeah, and I do say this. Mario Cristobal would not have taken any other job to leave Oregon except his alma mater.
That's where he's from.
Yeah.
He's a Cuban guy from Miami.
And his mother was dying. I think that was
is that right?
Yes, and he got to see his mother kind of spend time with her before she passed. I think that also played a factor. But again, if the Miami job had never opened, I still think he's your coach.
Absolutely. Well, hey, this is great. We're out of time here talking college football. But you know what? We're going to do some more shows here coming up here at Rokka Whiskey Bar and Grill here in beautiful Bellflower, California. Thanks to MTS Transportations. And Steve, we're going to do another show here soon. Right. That's great stuff. And bartender, where the hell are you? Steve, how long have we been milking these drinks?
Too long.
We should be on 2 or 3 by now, huh?
Dave Smith Unleashed, brought to you by MTS Transportations. And mention the Dave Smith Unleashed podcast and get 20% off on your next shipment for all your shipping, trucking, and freight needs. There's only one business to call, and that's MTS Transportations at 800-640-6873. MTS Transportations, 800-640-6873.